Well, YouTube, Petey Two Finger here. I wanted to recommend Horace and Pete, which is Louis C.K., his swan song, his masterwork. He's a famous comedian who got in trouble for some hanky-panky, some sexual misconduct in 2016, or was that 2017? He went from America's beloved funny man comedian to just the worst of the worst. People really wouldn't tolerate anything Louis C.K. And this is interesting. This show, it has a episode where that whole thing plays out in the show. It's kind of a fantasy how they show it, but again, good comedy or edgy comedy has stuff that makes you squirm, and that certainly there's a lot of that type of content in Horace and Pete, but overall, it was just the quality of the writing, the characters, the drama, the quality of the acting, the music, the set, everything about it made it was just one of the best things I've ever seen. It's a 10-part series. Each part's an hour or over an hour. All of the people involved in it, like Paul Simon did the music. Alan Alda stars in it with Steve Buscemi, along with Louis C.K. Jessica Lange plays this old alcoholic rummy who sits at the end of the bar. It's a downtown Brooklyn drinking establishment that's been there for 100 years. The name of the place is Horace and Pete's. And they were these two guys that started this bar to get away from their wives. There's a 100-year-old bottle of whiskey there. The first bottle of whiskey they bought for the bar is still there. It's got about that much in it. And they pour out a shot for this lawyer. They pour out about a quarter of a shot for this lawyer who drinks it, and he's like, he can't believe how good it is. But the lawyer shows up with Edie Falco, who plays Pete or Horace, one of them's sister, and she's like, let's shut this place down. It's nothing good ever happened here. Our dad was an asshole, and he beat mom, and Steve Buscemi gets up and starts yelling and screaming. There's a 10-minute monologue with Alan Alda that's just unspectacularly written, and he's great in it. At one point, they have there's a guy who does an accountant comes in to look at the books, and he says, it shows here you buy one case of Johnny Walker Red a month, but you sell two. And he says, well, I don't really want to talk about that. And he says, well, why? Because you're watering down your drinks by 50%. And Alan Alda says, attention to everybody in the bar. We've been watering down your drinks by 50%. So that means when you order a shot, you're getting half of water. And he's like, we've been doing that for 100 years. Does anyone care? And they're all like, we knew you were doing that. Give me another one. It's really funny. Anyway, as the show progresses, it gets more and more sensitive issues and hot-button topics. There's a transgender thing in there. There's weird masturbation thing with Louis C.K. fantasizing about Jessica Lange being in the room with him. It's really kind of hard to watch. And then that panned out to be true. That was the only thing about that show that kind of stuck in my craw. Other than that, it was like, it couldn't have been better. It was like the best written thing. It was super emotional. I cried in like every episode. It got me macho miss because it's so sad. The story of this family that's run this bar. So I know a guy who his dad ran a bar, and it was always his dream. When I knew him, he was driving a van delivering auto parts, and he was taking care of his kids. He had a couple of boys with this woman, and it didn't work out, and he ended up with custody of these boys, which really made an impression on me, because a lot of guys, they'll have kids with a girl, it'll break up, and then they won't have anything to do. They'll be like a deadbeat dad, and it wasn't like that with this guy. And so I really looked up to him. I was like, this guy is one in a million, because he had a sense of humor. He was a hard-working guy, and always made me laugh. And later on, he ended up having a bar. We went up there at the grand opening, and these bikers showed up and punched him out, because it used to be a biker club, the Henchman, and he put up a sign, no colors, no bikes, no fights, and they came in there and attacked him. And they came out and threatened us. They threatened our life. And then the main biker came up, there was a guy who was taking speed. He was the guy that they had designated to punch this guy. And man, did he punch him. I never saw anybody hit like that. He knocked him out with one punch, hit him in the side of the eye. And that guy, they came walking up in a triangle, and the leader was in the back like a Christmas tree, and there was one guy walking backwards, watching their back. And the guy in the front of the triangle was a designated hitter who punched him. And we went in the bar. Somebody was like, one guy ran out, was like, bikers, and took off with his girlfriend. We went in to see if Wally needed help to get into the brawl. It was me, this guy Jim Craig, and then this dude Dungy. And Dungy picked up a pool cue, or it might have been Joe, the guy who owned the bar, his brother. Somebody picked up a pool cue. And the whole thing, basically, they came in, the henchmen came in, and they were all like, hey, and they were like picking up pool cues and shooting in the game, like grabbing people's cigarettes, grabbing drinks, and patting people on the back, don't worry, it's okay. And then the one guy was like, where's, do I say his name? Where's Wally? And everyone was looking around, and Wally didn't say, like, I'm Wally. And then he was down under the bar doing something when they came in. He didn't even see him. And then they were like, where's Wally? And he stood up, and the guy went around the bar, and he said, hey, it's a pretty nice bar you have here. Well, there was a guy that jumped up onto the sign from the ground, and it was like at eye level. He jumped up onto the sign and latched onto it with his motorcycle boots and his gloves and pulled and ripped it off the wall, and then he broke it over his knee, and they were throwing it in pieces, and then the one guy grabbed the piece of it, and they brought it in. And the guy, he put his arm around Wally, he said, yeah, it's a really pretty nice bar you have here. And then they held it up, and they said, but we don't like your fucking sign. And then the guy hit him and knocked him out. And then it was like Joe picked up the pool cue, and everyone was rustling, and then it was like the main guy, the head henchman, he looked like Jerry Garcia. He had a big white beard. He was like, stop it! Or he calmed everybody down. He like yelled something, and he's like, that's enough. And like we don't hurt anybody else. We only punch Wally in the eye, and that's it. And then they all got into formation, and we went out the side door. I had come in the side door, and I went out the side door, and we went back out by our car. And they came out, and they got into a group and sat there and talked. We were smoking pot. We were getting high because we had been in the bar drinking all night, and we went out to do a little weed break. And so I went out to finish smoking pot and to watch them leave. Because that whole thing where they were walking in formation was so cool to me. We saw them coming down the street in a triangle formation. It was like they were marching in step. It was really cool. And so that guy that was on the speed, the methed out guy that they had given him whatever, probably crystal meth, to go in there and punch Wally. He came running up to our car when we were getting high, and he was screaming and yelling out of his mind, with his eyes spinning around and shit. Who picked up the fucking pool cue? And I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. I'm gonna get hit, because I was the leader of all those guys. It was like Dung, he, and Jim Craig, and I was like the kind of the guy, I had dragged them all out there. Because it was basically in another state, It wasn't in Illinois. It was like state over. So the Jerry Garcia, the leader, comes up to the guy who's yelling and screaming at us and tells him, calm down, calm down, calm down. Then he walks up to me and he says, look it, this is my town. He's like, when I'm going to conduct my business, you step back and you let me conduct my business, or you'll be dead. And he threatened me, and they were all like, ah! And then they got back into formation, and they all marched out. The little weird backwards guy was walking backwards. This was like something out of Escape from New York. It was the coolest thing. So the next day, we all worked together at an auto parts warehouse. The next day, we stuffed plastic bags in our arms to make our arms all out, to make us look like bikers. The guy, Wally, came in, and he had big sunglasses on to cover, because he had a huge shiner. And he came in and we were all walking around, "Where's Wally?" We all kept yelling at, "Where's Wally?" And that was the big thing. "Where's Wally?" That was it. So anyway, that guy, that bar is no longer in existence. He's got another bar now that's a huge step up. Because that place was a shithole. It had a pool table, but it was like really a rickety building. He had like a little electric pizza oven. It was a tiny, shitty bar. And then there was a jukebox that had Black Sabbath, Faith No More, Frank Zappa. It had all this great music on it. It was the best jukebox I've ever seen in my life. It was called the Casbah. And he's got a new place. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's really a lot nicer. It's really a nice place. He's doing well, and his son is there running the bar now. He's older, and he's passing it down to his son. And like that was his dad's thing. And I asked his son, I was like, "Do you remember me from the car place?" He was like, "Oh man, I never forgot. You were the greatest guy." He said that I put him and his little brother. They were like 4 and 5 years old when I met them. I put them in some kind of a cart and was pushing them all around real fast in this warehouse, and they loved it. And that's the type of stuff. If you're 4 and a guy does that, you're not going to forget that. And so I ended up in this bar, 20 years later, and the guy was like, "Let me buy you a drink. I'll never forget that right in that cart." So my thing is, I'm friends with those guys on Facebook, and I'm always like, "Horace and Pete, you got to watch the show." It's like, it's about this family who runs this bar, and it's really a heavy drama thing, and they never answer me about it. I don't think either one of them have ever watched it. So every couple of years, I'll send them a link. I'm like, "You really need to watch this show." It's like, I hope there isn't as much drama in their life as what was in this, because it's really a heavy thing. There's a lot of bad news stuff in this show. But like I said, he took out a loan. It was $500,000 per episode to make. And he didn't put it on TV. I don't think it would have been, I think people would have freaked out. People either would have loved it, or they would have been like, "This is too much. It's too much adult content and too weird," and but it got a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes, which should tell you something. The critics loved the show. It was on Louis C.K.'s website. You could pay $31 to buy the whole thing, or $3 per episode. And only his radical fans who were going to his website all the time knew about it. He didn't announce it. It was a surprise thing. He made it totally in secret. You had to sign a silence agreement. So there was no press about it. Nobody knew they made it. It just showed up on his website one day in January of 2016. And in April, they said it was canceled. They weren't going to do a second season. And he was in massive debt because nobody bought it. So it's, basically within a year from that, Louis C.K. became kryptonite. He was banned from everything. They took him out of circulation. He was no longer a public figure because he was a sex offender. So there's this thing out there called Horace and Pete that's one of the greatest television shows, the best adult drama comedy ever made that no one's seen. And that's what I'm here to tell you about today. Horace and Pete. I'm not going to sit here and try to explain it without giving too much away and twist your arm. Don't watch it. It's the best thing I've ever seen, and that's great. Don't watch it. I just downloaded my copy of it. I made another video today about Windscribe. There's no way to get it. You can't get it on DVD. It's the only way to get it is to what you can watch. There's maybe some episodes are up on YouTube. The first episode ends at the 1 hour mark, and I can tell you exactly how long episode 1 really is. If I go to my video folder, Horace and Pete, episode 1. Okay, so it's only 7 minutes. It's kind of a slow open. Like, it's dark. It's this dark shot of a bar, and then Louis C.K. appears, and he pulls his pants up. He starts walking out to, like, pull the chairs off the top of the... They've got them on the tops of the tables. And then he stops. He goes back and hits the jukebox, and this kind of groovy 70s music comes on, and he starts, like, shuffle dancing with himself as he's doing his morning routine of taking these chairs down. And then Steve Buscemi comes out, and he's kind of sweeping, and he's kind of dancing, and they're dancing around to this, like, really groovy song. And nothing is said for like 2.5 minutes as they dance to this song. I was like, this is going to be good. I was like, if that's how this thing opens, I bet this is going to be really good. And I can't tell you, everybody in it, all of the discussions, the dialogue at the bar, the stuff that people are talking about, it's all like political stuff, and they talk about all of these issues that we face, in modern life, and it's just really well done. It's really accurate and really funny. At the same time, soul-crushingly sad. Really, really sad. The end is spectacular. There's a whole thing that happens at the end, a whole plot, and the way it plays out is just unbelievable. So, highly, highly recommended. If you never took me up on any of my recommendations, this is the one that I want you to take me up on. Okay? And then come back and let me know in 10 years when I turn the comments on one of my videos, because people are still trying to get to me through the comments section. Alright, you guys. Like I always try to say, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Be nice. That's what Fetter says now. And peace.